Report development is a multi-step process. We started with exploring the AF database, which we would like to use as our data source. We created a query which acquires the data from the AF database using PySQL client. Now the next step is to use a tool to create the report. We can choose between two tools. The first one is Report Builder, available as Click Once application, or what we will use is Visual Studio 2019 with the Microsoft Reporting Services project's extensions. Let's navigate to our Learning Course virtual machine and open Visual Studio 2019 from the taskbar. For this demonstration, we have pre-created a sample reporting services solution located in the PySQL client SSRS folder. In the Solution Explorer, you may notice that the solution contains just one item, WinFarm Summary RDL. The WinFarm Summary RDL is a sample report which we will populate with data. We need to create a data source, which in simple words is a connection string. The content of the string depends on the data provider we will use. It will be different for PySQL client ODBC and it will be different for PySQL client OLEDB. Let's right-click on the shared data source and select the Add New Data Source option. Let's name the data source according to our AF database that we will use, namely WinFarm. We will use PySQL client OLEDB, so let's change the provider type to OLEDB. And finally, let's enter a PySQL client OLEDB connection string. It consists of the provider it should use, the data source location, and the authentication type. After we have created a data source, our next step is to create a dataset, which basically is a query which is used to get the data for our report from our data source. To create a dataset, right-click on the Shared Datasets folder and select the Add New Dataset option. The WinFarm Summary RDL is configured to use a dataset with the name WinFarm Summary, so let's enter it. Make sure the WinFarm data source is being used, which we have created in the previous steps, and use the default query type, which is set to text. Copy and paste the query created in PySQL Commander Lite to the query field. We can validate the query by pressing the Refresh Fields button. Navigate to the Fields tab to check the available fields from our query. The pre-created WinFarm Summary RDL report is configured to use those specific fields. Please make sure your select list has the exact field names as it is displayed on this screen. Finally, to validate our report, you can open WinFarm Summary RDL item from the Solution Explorer, and in the Open and Report window, navigate to the Preview tab and make sure that the data was correctly retrieved. In the next few steps, we will create a drill-down report using the SQL Server Reporting Services wizard. To start, right-click the Report folder and select Add New Report. Set the shared data source to the previously created WinFarm data source and press the Next button. Now we need a query which will be used in the report. Navigate back to the PySQL Commander Lite. We'll make a small modification to the query we have used for our previous dataset. We'll add another restriction by the WinFarm name. We'll make sure that the final restriction is based on a parameter by using a question mark. Press the F5 button to test the modified query and in the parameter pop-up enter a sample WinFarm name. Press the OK button to execute the query. If the query works correctly, copy it and move back to Visual Studio. Now paste the query from PySQL Commander Lite with the parameter restriction. Move to the next step. Let's consider two types of reports, the table and the matrix. The table has fixed columns and dynamic rows. The matrix has dynamic columns and rows. Both are subject to change when the underlying data changes. For this example, we will use a matrix. We'll make a simple layout by moving region and state to the page section, WinFarm to the columns section, name to the rows section, and the rest of the fields to the details section. We don't need to include the duration in seconds field since we are not performing any calculation on that field, and SQL Server Reporting Services handles displaying of the duration column well, even if the duration is greater than 1 day. On the final page, set the report name to WinFarm Summary Details and press the Finish button. In the report data section on the left, we can verify what was generated by the wizard. First, let's expand the parameters node. We can recognize that a parameter with the name parameter1 was generated. Let's rename it by right-clicking on the item and selecting the Properties option. Change the name to WinFromName and change the prompt of the parameter to something more meaningful. Press the OK button and next expand the datasets node. The dataset 1 was generated by the wizard. Let's navigate to the properties of the dataset to change the name and to apply the renamed parameter value name. Set the name to WinFarm Summary Details. Then, navigate to the Parameters tab to update our parameter value to the renamed WinFarm name, which is mapping to our question mark parameter in the query. Press the OK button. Now we can verify our generated report by navigating to the Preview tab. The preview will not display any data because it is expecting a parameter value. Enter a random WinFarm name like Lemon and press the View Report button to view the report for a specific WinFarm. Our next goal is to configure the drill down report. First, move back to the design view by pressing the Design tab. Next, select the WinFarm Summary RDL report to configure a link to the subreport. Since our generated report is expecting WinFarm name parameter, let's right-click on the blue WinFarm field and select the text box properties item. We will configure the item to open a subreport. In the Open Property window, navigate to the Action tab. Select the Go to Report option and change the Specify a Report to the created WinFarm Summary Details from the drop-down list. Specify WinFarm field as the value which should be used to set the WinFarm name parameter. Press the OK button. Now we could navigate again to the Preview tab to test the report, but instead let's publish the report to the server and view it in the browser. To publish the WinFarm report, right-click the PySQL client SSRS solution and select the Deploy Context menu item. At the bottom of the output window, make sure that the solution was built and published without any errors. Navigate to the deployment URL displayed in the output window and select the PySQL client SSRS directory to view its content. Select the WinFarm summary report. Navigate to a specific WinFarm by selecting any WinFarm name. As a result, we should be redirected to our WinFarm summary details, which displays event frames with very high wind speed captured in the selected WinFarm. In this module, you have created a query from scratch by leveraging the knowledge gathered in the previous lessons. Finally, you learned how to create a report using SQL Server reporting services utilizing PySQL client.